Welcome to the interview on the Raptors Republic Podcast Network. I'm Andrew Damelin. Today we begin our series on Canada basketball as we head towards the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. And to do that, we have a 3-on-3 qualifier who happens to be the best shooter in college basketball history. His name is Steve Sir. Steve, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And so right now you're in Lipik, Croatia. You just finished a quarterfinal entry into the tournament. You lost to the Belgian team in the quarterfinal in a really difficult, tough game at the end. A couple of tough calls that did go your way, actually, that you're smiling wryly about. Now, I want to circle back to where we are right now, but I want the listeners to get to know you. I'm not sure how many people know of Steve Sir. So the first question I want to ask you is, what's the first clear basketball memory you have where you fell in love with the game as a kid?
Well, my first word was ball. So I think I was a little bit set on what I wanted to pursue. My dad was a very good basketball player. He was an all-conference player at a Division II school in Minnesota called Winona State, a really high-level Division II university. He played professionally in Belgium. So there was a little bit of a nudge towards the, wouldn't basketball be fun? Hint, hint. And my first memories with basketball were going to watch my dad play in men's league, because once he had finished up with playing professionally, he was still a very good player and was still seeking out competition. We had moved to Edmonton for his job, and he was going to a bunch of different kind of runs in the city, playing with the University of Alberta guys who were really good at the time. And I would go with him, and I would sit on the end of his bench, or I'd sit on the stage at the Mormon church when they would play on Wednesday nights, and I would just watch and run out there when they took a break and try and chuck one up on the rim, and then scoot off the court when the big guys came back. So that's what I remember about basketball first, was watching my dad, being around all these big guys who were loud and sweaty and used words that I wasn't allowed to say when we went home to mom, and things like that. So I loved it from the start, because there was just this feeling you got when you went into the gym where people were competing and were saying things that just didn't get said outside of the gym, and just, that smell of pickup basketball and the shoes squeaking and the ball bouncing. And from there, it was just really what I wanted to do was to emulate my dad and emulate the guys that I saw playing in those gyms and competing and having fun.
Was your dad a lights out shooter?
He was a really good shooter. He was a great shooter. I got a lot of the "you're a better shooter than," or "you maybe you're a better shooter than your dad" when I was growing up. But he could really shoot, and it was obviously different era. The 3-pointer wasn't emphasized the way that it is now. But he was a great, mid-range shooter, catch, pump fake, 1-2 dribble, lean into you, hit a shot type of thing, and real smart. He knew how to use screens. And he was my first coach. So he really helped me with the fundamentals of how to shoot the ball, how to prepare for your shot, what to look for when things weren't going right. And he was my first coach, and as good a teacher as I could have had as far as the shooting component and the competing component.
Now, so with me, when growing up, I remember in elementary school and into high school, there was always a player on the other team, a top-ranked team, where you may not have scouted them beforehand, but after the first couple of shots, you're like, "Damn, I got to chase this guy around a screen. I got to go. I can't shoot a gap. I got to trail. I got to go over it." Do you remember the point? And it became so annoying to try to chase this guy around. Do you remember the point where you became an annoying guy to guard?
Shooting was what I did well when I was young. I remember hearing at a young age, when you're dribbling up the floor, you'd hear parents or coaches on the other team yell, "Don't let him shoot." And that was something that always stuck in my head of, well, I guess they think I can shoot it if they're willing to yell it out there in our small little gyms that we were playing in. When it really started to stick with me, when it was clearly something that teams were preparing for, we're scouting against, we're spending a lot of time trying to take that away from what we did, was when I got to high school. before that, when we played community league basketball growing up and when I played junior high, everybody knew I was a really good shooter, but it just wasn't the same because the preparation hadn't become a big part of the game yet. But once I got to high school, you could tell that it was, you're getting the other team's best defender. You're probably going to see a lot of defenders over the course of the game where they're going to be switching on you, bumping you, grabbing you, doing all those things. And you learn pretty quick that this is probably just going to be my basketball life, where if you're on the court, you're going to have the fastest, strongest guy guarding you, saying crazy things in your ear, and making it really tough on you to get catches. Not just whether or not you're going to shoot. Like, their whole job is like, you're not supposed to let Steve touch the ball. So that's when it really set in for me that, okay, this is the way life's going to be. I'm not going to show up to a gym and be able to do that thing anymore where you hit 5 or 6 and the other team finally figures out, oh, he can shoot. So from there, then you got into the ideas of, if this is what the plan is for the other team, then part of what I'm going to have to be good at is dealing with that and then figuring out ways to still utilize my strengths for myself and the benefit of my team, even though they're doing everything they can to take it away.
So you parlay that shooting prowess, I imagine, with other parts of your game to go down to play Division I basketball. You go to San Diego State for a season, redshirt the second season, transfer to Northern Arizona, and you end up becoming the best three-point shooter in NCAA history. Do you happen to know the percentage that you shot for your career?
I think is it 46.9?
I think it's 46.2. We should check that. I think it's 46.2. Maybe it's 46.9. But on 6.2 attempts.
46.2, we'll take it.
Yeah.
But I know there was a 46 in there. To be honest, I haven't seen it in a little while. Yeah, I'm somewhere in and around there.
Yeah, on 6.2 attempts as well. A really successful career. And I had a couple of dates that I picked out that were exceptional for you. And I was wondering, if I named the date, would you be able to pick out what game or what occurred on that day? Okay, so the first, and there's actually the same thing happened on 2 separate dates. So the first is 2 dates. January 25th, 2006 and January 11th, 2011.
Oh boy, 2006. I'm not sure.
The same thing happened. So you went 8 for 10 from 3.
Okay, all
in
right.
both of those games. Now, I've asked shooters over the years. I've talked to Nick Stauskas and I've talked to a guy named Matt Morgan on the Raptors 905. And it's hard for even them to sort of tell you what it feels like to be feeling it. Yeah. But they do try. Can you explain to us lay people, us lay shooters, what it feels like to be feeling it?
Oh boy, I got one crack at this, so I better do this right. I will side with those guys a little bit, that it's difficult to put into words and feel like you're going to do it justice. This is probably an easy way to start. It would be, everything just feels right. How you move, when guys are bumping you, it's like it doesn't bug you. Nothing's registering as far as outside distraction. Really, you're just feeling in this kind of, I know there's a lot of talk of it now, of being in the zone, like that flow state where it's just very linear and everything is just going in a smooth road for you. Your confidence is high. Like, even if you miss one, like if you're 8 for 10, you're not bothered at all by the one that you miss. I've always found that when you really know that you're playing well and shooting the ball well, for me, it was, am I rebounding the ball well? If I was in there, like getting on the glass and doing things like that, then that usually meant that I was shooting the ball at a really high clip that day. But I would say the confidence you have in yourself is higher than you normally ever feel, just because if you touch it, you feel like it's going to go in. If you get a look, it's going to go in. You're very aware of I think, how deflating it is to the other side of the ball, while not really paying any attention to it. You know that like everything's going in to try to stop you. And the second you get a little bit of daylight, the expectation is like, oh, that's it. He made it. like all that effort for nothing. And you become very hyper aware of the feeling in the gym of like the second there's daylight, that's it. And if you miss, everyone's surprised. So I don't think there's any greater compliment to a shooter that when you miss, people go, what's the problem? Like, what happened? So when you're in that zone, it's a special thing because, I mean, the longer you play, the more you realize that it just doesn't happen to the highest degree that you would hope that you'd be lucky enough to experience in your life or when you're playing, and you get a chance to see that there's different levels to it. Like one day you feel good, another day like you're feeling really good, and then you have those special days where it's like everything just feels right. And when it's over, I know I felt like, wow, like that was pretty cool. That felt great. And when you watch it back, you go like, man, how come I can't just do that all the time? But it's just one of those special feelings and those cool things that happen in sport that when you reflect on it, you go, man, in a way, you're not lucky, but you're awfully fortunate that you were able to experience it.
First of all, that's an amazing explanation. So I think you did it
Thanks.
justice.
So I was a little worried that it was going to stink.
No, it was excellent. But you mentioned, you say, why can't I do that all the time? And that's the downside of the shooter, right? The shooter, when
Sure.
you become so good, the expectation is that it's going to go in. And especially if you're someone off the bench who's like the microwave scorer and you miss those first couple or something, it's like, well, this third one better go in or else I might be coming out of the game. And, I talked to Stauskas about the shooter's mentality, and he wasn't teammates with Duncan Robinson, but Duncan Robinson also went to the University of Michigan. And Robinson has a really deep philosophy in terms of the shooter's mentality. He says he's never one to put up extra shots after a bad game, let's say, because he's like, if my work was good enough before, I went 7 for 10 or 5 for 10 or 3 for 10, it was good enough when I went 1 for 10 or over 10 or whatever it is, right? So how do you manage that? Because there's waves of confidence with any player, but especially with a shooter when his job is to make shots. How have you managed those? I'm sure there have been down streaks and things like that. How have you managed those to sort of keep that even mentality and stay in that positive mindset as a shooter?
You know what? Honestly, Andrew, it's hard. Like there are times when you get into these slumps and you miss certain shots that you drilled all week, and you're just like, I've been working on this. I didn't hit it. What the hell? And you get into those feelings where you remember your misses so clearly and like just inch by inch, second by second, and you forget like, yeah, but you made 10 this way. And it's like, yeah, but what about the one? And it's just driving you up the wall. Managing your highs and lows I think is one of the biggest challenges in anything. But I mean, as a shooter where it's such a precision thing, it's so easy to beat yourself up on the ones that you felt like, oh man, if I would have done like that different, it would have been money or something like that. And try and always focus on the mentality of, next play, next shot, doing something little to really cue up your shooting. Like, the idea of my dad was great at reminding me of this. And I've had other good coaches over the course of my career. But like, if you're struggling with your shooting, like, let's do something easy to get going here. Like, let's get a back cut. Like I mentioned before with rebounding, like if I'm getting back cuts in games, then I know that I'm not just shooting the ball, I'm reading the game the correct way. Because you have those games where you're shooting it pretty well, but it's 2-3 heavy. Like I'm always hunting the next one. You're doing heat checks and things like that. And then if you're really reading the defense, then it's like, okay, that's really what they're concerned about as well. Let me back cut and get a layup, and let me do something easy. Let me get to the free throw line and really clear the head, get something simple. As shooters, and I think everyone can agree with this, you got to be a great screener as a shooter. You got to understand how freeing up your teammates oftentimes is, one, going to get them going, and then two, the old adage of screener gets the shot. So go crack somebody on a screen and get somebody open. That really cues you up of like, I'm engaged here and it's going to turn around. I've always found for shooting though, the greatest test is, can you manage your highs and manage your lows and just stay consistent? Because the guys who are the shooters that we all marvel at are the ones that are day to day shooting the ball really well. Not amazing, really well. And that's the ultimate challenge is, can I be a can I be the best shooter in the gym on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and not just have it be like, man, he was lights out today and he just can't buy one. He can't buy one yesterday or buy one the next day. Steve Martin had a great quote about that in his book about stand-up comedy, of how there would always be comedians that would come in and just kill that one night and then they would stink the next one. And he said his great challenge was, can I be funny and really good every single day? And when I read that, I thought like, boy, that doesn't feel like shooting, where the gym's cold, the ball feels weird, the other team's all over you, passes maybe are just a second late. I ate something weird before the game, but can I still be really good? And, it's a battle sometimes, and it's something that I've struggled with over my career of focusing too much on the negative and forgetting like what you mentioned with Duncan Robinson of, if I did all the things right and I just had a bad day, then I'm human. I had a bad day. I can bounce back, and the work that I put in isn't any different. But I'd imagine most shooters would say the same things. You have those slumps where you feel like, hey, is this going to turn around? And then it turns around, and all of a sudden you're just right back to where you want to be.
Support for the interview is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right. The 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code RR at manscaped.com. Imagine shaving with a sleek, well-designed, and optimized trimmer that makes shaving time your favorite time in the bathroom. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code RR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code RR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
We move on from Northern Arizona as that shooter that you are, and I mean, I looked at your Real GM page. There was a gap between 2007 and 2011 when you played in Romania. Were you playing professionally in that interim period, or was there?
Yeah.
Okay,
well, I was in Switzerland for 2 years, and then I was in Germany for a year, and then I played in Mexico for 2 years, which was an experience. So.
I wanted to ask you, what's the best overseas horror story you could give us? Everyone I've talked to on the Representative 5 has got something you can tell us on the podcast that quickly comes to mind.
Appropriate, sure. When we were traveling in Mexico, we were on a long bus ride through the night, and this was during when some of the cartel stuff was getting pretty bad, and everyone was asleep on the bus, and all of a sudden the bus came to a stop, and some guys in military uniforms came on the bus with their weapons, and they just put them in everyone's faces, and they were like, "Passports, where are the passports?" And all of us were just like, I hope these guys are actually military. So I mean, it's not funny. It's not funny. I mean, I don't even know if I've told my wife that story because it would just freak her out so much. But we showed our passports, and luckily they turned out to be real military, and they weren't cartel that were disguised as military. And you'd heard bad stories about those things. And we luckily kept going on the bus and got back home safe and sound. But it was one of those experiences where everybody looked around afterwards and like, there's another way that could have ended that would have been really awful. And thank goodness we're moving in the right direction. So that was a scary one. Scary one.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So we're talking about the winding road you were getting to the 3-on-3, right? So let's continue past that terrible memory. So you play in Romania, you play in Switzerland, back to Romania actually, and in 2016 you get a summer league invite to the Milwaukee Bucks, and I was like, you played 2 or 3 games for them. And do you remember the game against the Rockets? I imagine that's a clear one that sticks out. You went 2 for 2 from 3, I think. Montrezl Harrell was in that game for the Rockets. You were playing with Malcolm Brogdon. So do you remember stepping out on the floor amongst NBA competition? And 9 years after leaving college, do you remember what that was like?
Well, it was, when you looked at the roster, it was there was a bit of a gap in age. So they released our roster, and all the birthdays were like in the 90s, and
Yeah.
they were 22. And then you came to my name, and it was 1982. These guys had no idea what 1982 was all about. So I was a little bit older, definitely one of the veterans on the summer league roster. But when they told me that I was coming, it was to be just that. Like, they wanted me to come in and shoot the ball, because that was something at the time the Bucks were really lacking. And they wanted me to also be a leader for a group of guys that were all younger and needed to learn how to work at an NBA level. Now, I wasn't an NBA player as far as being on a roster or anything like that, but one of the things that has worked for me is there's always been, I guess, the word out there that I'm a pretty persistent guy, and that if there's a chance to come early or stay late, then I'm going to do it. And I do feel like that was a key thing that helped me become a great shooter, was of the consistency of pre and post practice workouts and getting extra shots and running a few extra sprints. And that's what they wanted me to do with the roster, was to be that guy that was also helping young guys get their extra reps in. I knew when I was going to go down there that it was going to be a crapshoot on whether or not I was going to get a lot of playing time. They had told me flat out, like, we have some guys that are going to get a long look, and we'll see what happens. That's fine with me. It was, still an opportunity to go play in, like you said, at an NBA level, be on an NBA floor. And that's a dream come true for just about any basketball player. When I went down there, I surprised myself a bit and played well. The NBA is very different than Andrew, it's very different than European basketball. You can find shots if you're playing with guys that can get you into spots, and the guys are so big that when they're hitting people with screens, it's awfully tough to get around. And I sat for a good number of the first couple of games, and I made a deal with myself when I went down there, though, that no matter what happened, I was going to, do the same thing, show up early, stay late, have a good attitude. If I'm sitting and I get 30 seconds, I'm going to go in there and give myself the best 30 seconds that I can for the team. And I'm going to come out, because I'm 9 years out of school, and I know, like, these opportunities don't come along ever. And if this is going to be something that I'm going to pout about, that's going to be the wrong way to end this. So I stayed positive. I had a pretty good closed door scrimmage with the Raptors. I got in against the Mavericks, missed a shot, was a little bit upset at the end of that, because I was like, oh man, that might have been my one. On an off day, I had a chance to get in with the gym with Steve Novak and Michael Carter-Williams. I bugged the coaches to let me join the workout, and they were like, all right, go, fine, work out with them. And I really felt like, hey, if I get a chance to play, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna get it. And I feel like, until this is over, I know I'm gonna get something. I just don't know what it is. And then the Rockets game happened, and it's all the way to the end. And then they tossed me in, and I got a free throw. So, like we talked about earlier, like something little to get you on track and get you focused. And then got a nice one in transition on the right wing. They hit me in stride, which was probably a shooter's dream, to walk into a good looking three. And then a nice NBA one where they swung it around, you get to the corner, and you're just able to pop it. And man, I'll tell you, like, it was, my wife was there with my kids, and, my parents were there, and there were some kids from Edmonton that were down there for an AAU tournament that were at the game. And, I played a lot of basketball and I've been a lot of places, but to wear have an NBA jersey on, to play on an NBA floor, to have people yelling your name, was really a dream come true. Because when I was little, I collected NBA cards. You dream of this level. And I know there's a lot of guys out there now that, have these opportunities, but I played in some out of the way countries, and the NBA didn't come along for me until I was 34. So to have a chance to do that was, it's difficult to put into words. It was special. And to be able to hit a couple shots and have some kind of impact was something I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
Man, I got chills. That's amazing. Thinking about watching, if my kids ever came to watch me do whatever, sure, to cover a game, and that's really, really cool. So I'm glad you took so much out of that experience. And since then you've parlayed that into 3-on-3 captaincy. Here we are for Team Canada. When you started with Team Canada or with 3-on-3 basketball, it wasn't an Olympic sport as yet.
No.
And you would really, there was an interview I saw you did. You had a funny response where people's opinions on 3-on-3 really flipped once.
Quick.
Yeah. Well, can you describe people's reaction once it was decided that it was going to be an Olympic sport?
Very much so. I really enjoy answering this question because it was, like, Andrew, I'm telling you, if you could capture in a bottle how funny it was and how quick it flipped. We were running 3x3 tournaments in Alberta, probably since about 2011, 2012, with Alberta basketball. My dad had attended a meeting in Denver, talking about the changes to the game and how it was going to be new and exciting and fast. And there was even this whisper of, you know what, like, they're looking for new sports at the Olympics. This could be an Olympic sport. It's exciting. People love basketball, volleyball and beach volleyball, that kind of stuff. So we were running these events, and man, did people push back on it. Like, oh, the rules, and like, you know, why aren't we checking it after we score every time? What's with this ball? Like, it's so annoying. And like, I get it. Like, it was new, and I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, but it was funny to see people be so resistant to it. Like, people were like taking the 3x3 ball, hiding it under chairs, and then grabbing a regular 5-on-5 ball and be like, we can't find the ball, just play with it. So it was really weird. The second it became an Olympic sport, and when I started playing it, people were like, that sounds fun, good for you. The second it became an Olympic sport, people were like, man, this is fun. Like, man, this ball is cool. Like, look at all the colors. And oh my goodness, I love the rules. It's such a fast-paced game. And it was like, I don't remember it being described that way 2 months ago. So yeah, exactly. There was a pretty big about face on this. But the good thing was, when the Olympics, the announcement came for Tokyo, was it just put a legitimacy behind the sport that I mean, only the Olympics can provide, because there's a pro circuit, there's all these tournaments, there's prize money that is available in a lot of these things that I think sometimes people don't understand just how much is available out there for the opportunities to play in all these unique places in the world, and opportunities to play against really good players, be at these super cool events, and, you know, win a little bit of cash too, like kind of take a different avenue for professional basketball. But when the Olympics got behind it, people really stood up and noticed, like, wow, this is serious. And this is going to be something that people are going to have to really pay a lot of attention and not be able to ignore as just kind of like some sort of kitsch sport, which was great because that created more interest. It creates more engagement. And then I think it also will allow more opportunities for young players, for weekend warriors, just people who love basketball, to get involved in a sport that really and truly at the heart of it is a lot of fun. It's fast, it's quick, everybody gets to touch the ball. There's all these possibilities for it. And luckily the Olympics really lended weight to it so that people could jump in and be enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, and to be honest, you know, just watching your tournament was the first time I had watched FIBA 3-on-3 basketball, and I'm like, this is interesting. So the ball goes in the hoop, 12 seconds on the shot clock. You take it out of the hoop, you have to clear it. The shot clock is running as soon as you take it out of the hoop, right? It's not like regular 3-on-3 where everyone stops, you go back to the top, and you check up and start again. So it looks exhausting to be honest.
Yeah, it is.
Like, and it's physical. It's half court, a third court, and it's physical as hell. And, you know, I'm wondering, like, there's the 5-on-5 player that plays some 3-on-3, but let's say him and his buddies they're good. They want to enter a 3-on-3 tournament, but they're going to face Steve Sir and the boys, right? What type of sort of strategic adjustments, or maybe might be caught by surprise by, perhaps, or not really know what to do in terms of the 3-on-3 setting that they may not be used to?
The biggest adjustment, I think, Andrew, for everybody is how quickly the ball turns from offense to defense, defense to offense. In 5-on-5, we have the chance to make a shot. You get to jog or run back and settle in and see what's coming at you. This changes so quick. And when you play against guys that have really figured out the nuances of the sport, they're oftentimes playing offense before their defense is even set up. So if they know, like, hey, the ball went into the low post, can't really help because it's not a good idea to help off shooters on the wing and give up a 2 as opposed to a 1. And they see a big guy is going to go, or a post player is going to go and score the basket. These guys are turning from defense to offense before the ball's even gone in. They're running to a new spot. They're running to go screen for somebody. And if you're new to it, the odds are you're probably watching your teammate score and then going like, all right, who do I guard? And that guy's already run over to a blind spot. He's already getting a pass and whipping it back inside for an easy layup. 3-on-3 is so quick in how it turns from one side of the ball to the other. It catches people off guard when they first start playing it because you're used to just having a little bit of a buffer so that you can adjust to getting from one side of the court to the other. I think the simplicity in the game is wonderful because, like you said, there's 12 seconds. There's time, but there's not a lot of time. So when you get it, you either got to shoot it, put it down, or you got to get rid of it and go do something for somebody else. When new guys come to the sport, there's still that draw of 5-on-5 of like, I'm going to get it. I'm probably going to bounce it and set my stuff up, and I'm going to start to maybe do my thing. And before you know it, 6 seconds has gone by and nobody's moved. And for the defense, that's perfect because if the game's been fast, I can kind of catch my breath a little bit. Then you're killing yourself trying to go one-on-one. And I've done this when I first started playing it. I see guys do it now. You just expended all this energy to try and get 1 point. And then if you make or you miss it, rebound, throw it, guy catches it, hits a 2, or guy catches it, whips it back in, gets a layup. We scored in 2 seconds. And now you got to turn around and do it all over again. And you go, oh my God, my heart's going crazy. I'm out of breath. And I can't kill myself like this on every possession for 21 ones. You don't get that as much, I think, now that we've gotten to the kind of level that we wanted to get to, because everyone we play against now knows like the ins and outs of the sport. They have their unique strategies depending on what country they come from of how they want to play. And that's one of the beauties of it is it's so fast and physical and taxing. But man, when it starts to click and there's a rhythm to it, it's a beautiful game. When the ball's moving and guys are making quick decisions and quick reads. Oftentimes when the fans have been at games, you can hear people go, make those sounds of enjoyment of from like an alley-oop or from a back cut or from a wide open 3 or a fake and a behind the back pass that comes from just being able to read the game quickly. And that's a thrill to be able to hear it because it's really simple and pure basketball of collective and fast reading movement.
That's a beautiful explanation of the game. And I think that's a perfect way to end this. I had one more for you, but that's just such a good explanation that we're going to leave it at that, I think. Listen,
Steve,
shoot. Okay, fine. Well, it's just about the strategy, with the NBA, it's adjusted in terms of the 3-point shot. Obviously the volume has just exploded now. And because a 3 is greater than 2. Now in 3-on-3, it's double, it's 2 and 1. So how much of the strategy is sort of centered around when let's say there's a post up and maybe there's a mismatch because of a screen? It's like, how often are you willing to concede just that one-on-one matchup? Maybe it'll be a layup versus giving up a 2, given how valuable a 2 is now.
Depending on what stage in the game it's at, that definitely plays a role. I mean, when you get down to the nitty gritty and say it's 16-15 with a minute left, I mean, you don't want to give up 2s because that can be huge momentum swings, but you really don't want to give up anything at that point. You have to be smart because sometimes, as I mentioned before, inexperienced teams will come into this and think, oh, well, we'll just make 2s. And then metrically, the more 2s we shoot, that should balance out that we'll just score more points. Well, no, that's not always how it's going to work, because if you're tired as hell and you're trying to chuck up these 2s and these guys are just beating you to death on defense, you might make 0. Like there have been games when we played against guys that are shooting a high volume of 2s, but they're so gassed that they're just throwing it up there. Then when we get the rebound, they're out of position for defense and we can get easy ones when they're still trying to catch their breath. You do want to have a healthy amount of 2s taken because, one of the great things about this sport is there aren't any guys that I can think of that we play against at a high level that aren't a threat to be able to hit that shot. You have to be able to hit the shot. Because if you aren't, people are just going to leave you. And when I first got involved in this, there were a few guys that played where if they get a catch at the 2, you just fall back into the paint, or you could double off them or something along those lines. So finding the right balance of of outside attack to draw the defense out, and then being able to just do old-fashioned basketball where it's like, hey, we need a basket or a foul. So like we have Kyle Landry on our team, who's a great Canadian player and spent a lot of time with our national team. Oftentimes, we want to say, hey, at the beginning of the game, we need to get Kyle involved. We need to get Kyle engaged. And the best way to do that is maybe let's get some rescreen action. Let's get him diving at the basket, get someone on his back, and let's get an easy basket so that he's feeling good. Late in the game, those are great things too, because we put the onus on the refs to say, hey, if he's going to score, he's going to score, or we need him to get fouled so he can go to the free throw line. Even though the game is sped up, even though the game does break down to, like you said, twos count for a whole heck of a lot, you still have to think of what are the efficiencies of your team, who are you playing against, and if you got a guaranteed one, but there is a guy open on the two, but he's an okay shooter, take the one. Take the one. I mean, if I were able to sneak open, we've done this a few times where I'm able to sneak open to the corner. We have one, guys will chuck it out to me, and we'll think, hey, we'll take the risk on that because we might get double. It's a unique thing. I'm going to be very curious to see over the next few years how more people take to this sport, how kids take to the sport, and the opportunity it provides, specifically in Canada, because I think the potential for 3-on-3 is so high, and also too, just from the plain fact of it's so much fun. Hopefully it just continues to grow and prosper in our country. And we see Canada at the Olympics this year and in 2024 and in 2028 and all those good things as we continue to go.
Yeah, you got the tournament coming up in Austria on May 26th.
Yep.
Everyone in Canada is rooting for you, wishing you the best of luck. And Steve, we really appreciate the time.
Thanks so much, Andrew. This was fun.